Welcome to the Body Map Explainer, unlocking the secrets within. Here, every heartbeat, every breath tells a story of life. Discover the intricate map of your body.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're exploring the absolutely astonishing mechanics of the human eye. We're going to take a journey through one of the most intricately designed structures in the human body, using our source material to map out precisely how we process light into the rich, three-dimensional world we see every single day. To kick things off, I want you to consider this quote. To suppose that the eye could have been formed by natural selection seems, I freely confess, absurd in the highest degree. Well, that's from Charles Darwin himself. I really wanted to start here because this perfectly establishes the central tension we'll be exploring today. You see, our source text heavily contrasts the prevailing theories of evolutionary biology with a very specific creationist perspective. They argue that the sheer mind-boggling complexity of the eye actually challenges the entire idea of unguided evolution. So here is our roadmap for today. 1. The marvel of vision. 2. Managing the light. 3. Receiving the image. 4. The creationist perspective. And 5. Explaining eye imperfections. Section 1. The marvel of vision. Our source material frames the eye not just as an organ, but as an absolute, interrated masterpiece. It's often compared to a high-tech camera, right? But the text points out that it actually vastly outperforms any camera humans have ever invented. It's this highly interdependent system of structural components, the cornea, the iris, the lens, the retina, and the optic nerve. And the core argument our source makes here is that these pieces must all work perfectly together, simultaneously, to produce sight. A lens without a retina? Basically useless. An optic nerve without a visual cortex? Goes absolutely nowhere. This strict interdependence is really the foundation of the biological and philosophical arguments we'll be unpacking. Section 2. Managing the light. Imagine following a single photon of light as it begins its incredible journey into the eye. The very first thing it hits is the cornea, a transparent, dome-shaped surface. But it's definitely not just a simple window. It's a 5-layer, microscopic marvel. First, you have the epithelium on the outside, which protects the eye and can literally self-heal minor scratches in just a day or two. Beneath that is Bowman's layer for tough structural support. Then the thick stroma, where collagen fibers are spaced with just unbelievable mathematical precision to ensure total transparency. After that is Descemet's membrane acting as a flexible barrier, and finally the endothelium on the inside, this fragile layer of cells acting as a tiny pump to keep the cornea dehydrated and perfectly clear. The text just marvels at this transparent, bloodless design. Moving past the cornea, we reach the iris and the pupil. Now, the iris is the colored part of your eye, but beneath that color, it is absolutely packed with intricate, smooth muscles. It acts as the ultimate light controller, operating exactly like the aperture of a camera, but completely on autopilot. Step out into bright sunlight, and boom, the sphincter muscles in the iris instantly constrict your pupil to protect your sensitive retina. But walk into a dim room, and a completely different set of muscles, the radial muscles, contract to dilate the pupil, letting more light in. And all of this happens in a fraction of a second. Our source material points to this instantaneous automatic regulation as direct evidence of intelligent, purposeful programming, ensuring our eyes function optimally no matter how fast our environment changes. Section 3. Receiving the image. So once light has been perfectly managed and focused by the front of the eye, it hits the retina, which our source wonderfully describes as a living camera sensor. But capturing the image just isn't enough. It has to actually be transmitted to the brain. Enter the optic nerve. You can really think of the optic nerve as this incredibly high-bandwidth data cable containing over 1 million tightly packed nerve fibers. It is the critical bridge that transfers visual data from the eye directly into the visual cortex of the brain without losing an ounce of speed or clarity. But how is that data even generated? Well, it all comes down to 2 types of photoreceptors, the rods and the cones. You have about 120 million rods, and these are your masters of motion and night vision. Astoundingly, our source notes that a single rod cell is so sensitive, it can be triggered by just 1 single photon of light. Crazy, right? On the flip side, you have about 6 million cones. These handle your central vision and allow you to perceive millions of distinct colors. They are 2 completely different types of cells, yet they work in absolute harmony. So the crucial takeaway here is how this all comes together instantaneously. Step 1, light hits the retina. Step 2, those rods and cones react. Step 3, the optic nerve transmits the electrical impulses. And step 4, the visual cortex processes it. The source also points out a super fascinating detail here. The image projected onto your retina is actually upside down. It's the brain that automatically flips it, correcting and filtering the image in real time, so we perceive the world right side up. Section 4, the creationist perspective. Right, so now that we've mapped out the biological machinery, how does our source philosophically interpret this data? Well, their foundational argument rests on something called irreducible complexity. This is the concept that certain integrated biological systems simply cannot function if any single part is removed. The source argues that because the cornea, lens, retina, and optic nerve must all exist simultaneously to produce vision, the eye fundamentally challenges step-by-step evolutionary models. In their view, a system this interdependent literally requires a deliberate, intentional designer. In fact, the text poses this really specific question. The eye functions only when all parts work together. A half-formed eye doesn't see, so how would it be selected for survival? That quote neatly encapsulates their entire central thesis. From the source's perspective, unguided, random evolutionary processes just can't adequately explain the spontaneous emergence of these perfectly synchronized parts. Section 5, explaining eye imperfections. Now, you might be wondering, if the eye is the product of perfect, intentional design, how does the source explain the fact that so many of us need glasses, or that eye diseases even exist? The text answers this through a theological and biological framework of genetic entropy and the biblical fall. The source posits that the original human genome was created completely flawless. However, following the biblical fall, corruption and decay entered creation. So, over generations, the genome has suffered from genetic entropy, meaning mutations and copying errors have slowly accumulated, degrading what was originally a perfect design. According to the text, this genetic degradation manifests in several ways, ranging from refractive errors like astigmatism, where the cornea becomes slightly misshapen, to degenerative diseases like cataracts and glaucoma. It also includes inherited genetic disorders like retinitis pigmentosa and even autoimmune conditions where the body mistakenly attacks its own ocular tissues. The source material points to specific diseases like cataracts, macular degeneration, and glaucoma, but notice how it frames them. The text doesn't view these as initial flaws in the blueprint. Instead, they are framed strictly as a loss of original perfection, a breakdown of high-performance areas due to aging, cellular debris, and a world living under a curse. It is basically a view of biology in a state of ongoing decay. To summarize this whole worldview, we are really presented with a stark contrast. On one side, you have a perfect original design, characterized by rapid self-healing, flawless genetics, and a beautifully symbiotic environment. And on the other side, a post-fall reality, defined by accumulating genetic mutations, cellular decay, and hostile pathogenic infections. The source maintains that the underlying machinery is undeniably brilliant, even if the current hardware is suffering from environmental and genetic wear and tear. And that leaves us with a final, provocative question to chew on. Does the eye's breathtaking complexity point to the slow march of unguided evolution, or does it point to the purposeful blueprint of an intentional designer? Our source makes a deeply passionate case for the latter, using the stunning mechanics of the cornea, iris, and retina to argue for irreducible complexity. The sheer biological engineering happening inside your head right now, just to watch and process this information, is absolutely awe-inspiring. I hope this explainer gave you a really clear, structured understanding of the source material. Keep learning, keep questioning, and we'll see you in the next one.